From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
We're back in the friendly confines of the studio here for the podcast. Dale Carter with Kurt Wheeler. And if you're just listening to the audio only, you would miss the vibrant red shirt that I'm wearing. It is a Red Monday in Kansas City as we record this after the Chiefs' victory at Arrowhead Stadium. So all excited about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tight game.
Indeed, it was tight. There are many ways that you can help us spread the word on Dale Carter's America, and Kurt always starts the show off by telling you that so that you know that you can help us grow this audience.
Absolutely. Make sure that you follow us and subscribe on YouTube or Rumble for the video podcast. Make sure you subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment. It all helps with the algorithm. And we put that into effect last week and gave out some Tucker tickets. So hopefully everyone was able to enjoy that show. I went and enjoyed it as well. You can find the audio-only version on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And then make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Facebook is where most of the action happens, in the comments, and Dale posting lots of funny stuff and memes and getting in fights and all that. So join in.
We'll get into all that later on, too. And then after you've helped us spread the word, help yourself by checking in with Bob Watson and get a rate quote. He's our State Farm guy. 50 years as a State Farm agent in the Kansas City area. He's based in Blue Springs, but he can work with you on the Missouri side or the Kansas side, so that gives him a huge territory. He's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs at 816-229-7878. And as you know, at State Farm, if you bundled your home and car insurance, you'll save big bucks. Surprisingly great rates with State Farm, and Bob Watson's got a team who can help you when you need to use that insurance. It's one thing to have insurance. It's another thing that when something goes wrong and you need to use the insurance, that's when Bob Watson really comes in handy. So give him a call, check him out, and get insurance for everything that you care about, because that's important. The news happens fast around here, and while I was doing PA for the Kansas City Chiefs game, I was following this on my phone, the breaking news of yet another assassination attempt on Donald Trump.
Yep.
Now, you were following that because I was doing the game, so brief me on all that.
Well, yeah, I wasn't really looking at Twitter or anything like that, but they did, during the broadcast, during one of the commercial breaks, they did a cut to the newsroom type of thing where they said, breaking story, there's been shots fired at the Trump International Golf Course in Florida. I guess Trump was out golfing, and a guy from a much further distance this time, the guy in PA was, I think, 150 yards. This guy had some sort of AK or similar type weapon with a scope from 400 to 500 yards. Shots were fired, and the Secret Service team surrounded Trump and took him away. And then the police shot back, or the Secret Service shot back. Somebody shot back, and the guy fled and then was apprehended sometime thereafter. So
the guy's name is Ryan Ruth, and his son, Orrin Ruth, told the Daily Mail that his dad, he hates Trump. Of course he hates Trump, but he was shocked to hear about the supposed assassination attempt. Really? This is the byproduct of Trump derangement syndrome. When you go on the air every day over at MSNBC and you say things about Donald Trump that he's worse than Hitler, he's going to be a dictator, we'll never have another fair election in this country again, and you've lit this fuse all over the country, and the administration's done some of it too. Do you remember the bathed in red speech that Joe Biden gave in Philadelphia, where he talked about the danger that Trump was to America? If you really boiled it down, here's what it comes down to. On the left, they despise the guy. They don't like him. They don't like the way he presents himself. But in a spectrum where you look at conservative versus liberal, Kurt, I think you would agree with this, Donald Trump is not a diehard conservative. There's a lot of views that he holds that true conservatives don't hold.
Right. Yeah. Politically, he's probably center-right, if not centrist.
I think that's exactly right. They just don't like him.
Well, the reason they don't like him is because he's more than he is traditionally conservative or socially conservative. He's anti-establishment. He calls out the media. He calls out the deep state. And that's more to a threat. That's more a threat to their power than anything.
Absolutely.
You know, they can deal with, you know, a Ted Cruz or, you know, Mitt Romney is not really conservative, but they can deal with somebody like that because they don't actually threaten the power structure. You know, they don't threaten to shut down the departments and agencies. They don't fire anybody. They don't call out the media in the same way. So Trump is a real threat in that case. And with this specific shooting, there's a lot of questions that I'm sure will hopefully, you know, be answered or at least asked over the coming weeks and days. But this was a private event. You know, I mean, the thing in PA was a public event. So the guy obviously knew that Trump was going to be there. Security failures notwithstanding of how he got up on the roof and everything like that. But it was a known event. In this case, Trump was just out playing golf. So how did the guy know that he was going to be there? How did he know what hole he was going to be on? You know, it seemed like it was very lucky, you know, to say the least.
For him anyway.
Yeah.
Or unlucky, as the case may be, because his life as he knows it is now over. At some point, they moved Secret Service from the Department of Treasury, where it was a big deal at Treasury, to a little part of Homeland Security. I don't know when that happened. I don't know who was responsible for it, but maybe it's time to really look into the Secret Service and maybe move them back to the Treasury Department.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have to have protection for this guy because he's in serious danger. You know, I mean, even just playing golf, it's like it's something so innocent, you know what I mean? And a golf course that he owns, you would think that if he could be safe anywhere, it would be there. But even there, you know,
do you think the folks at MSNBC or the administration or maybe the people on The View, do they have any moment of introspection and say, gosh, do you think we're responsible for setting off these lunatics?
No, I think it probably empowers them even more because now they have to go into overdrive because every time, you know, Trump had a huge boost after the first assassination attempt in PA. His numbers went through the roof. His image went through the roof. Everyone was reposting, you know, the picture of him with his fist up.
Yeah.
It was a huge PR win for him because it was a failed attempt, you know. So they had to, you know, fake that, oh, violence is not the answer. Oh, we don't stand for this. And then after 2 days, right back to he's a threat to our democracy. I mean, even in the debate, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, there was a whole series of questions in the debate about January 6th, Charlottesville. He said Nazis are very fine people. He denies the election. There was a question about that. You know, he's a threat to, with the underpinning, obviously, the undertone of that is he's a threat to our democracy. He doesn't believe in elections. Blah, blah, blah. What wasn't brought up once in the debate was the fact that he was shot like a month ago. You know what I mean? That wasn't even mentioned. So,
well, you know, the way I look at this thing, you know, and we've talked about the spectrum and liberal versus conservative and all that. I look at Donald Trump as a pragmatist. You know, he ran a business. He ran a very successful business. He's a guy who just wants to get some things done. And they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know what box to put that in. And so they try and tag him with Project 2025, which is the think tank piece from the Heritage Foundation, you know, about what they would want in a Republican presidency. It's not Trump's plan. It's the Heritage Foundation's plan. But, you know, the Democrats jumping all over that saying, oh, Project 2025. You know, when anybody brings that up, the question I have for them is, have you read it? Do you even know what the hell you're talking about? Probably you don't. I mean, I have. And there are things in it that I'm like, why haven't we done this yet? You know, you talk about the deep state and the fourth branch of government and all that. We talked about that last week. We've talked about it many times on the podcast. But you've got federal agencies running amok out there who are just kind of creating their own law, making it up as they go along. Yeah, there's a law that's been passed by Congress that's sort of in a gray area, gives us the right to do this, and they just make it up as they go along. And you've got agencies that contradict each other. So, you know, if you're a business owner and you're trying to comply with everything and do the right thing, it's like this agency's telling you one thing and this agency's telling you another thing. And neither of them are enforcing a law that was passed by Congress. Don't you think that's some area for confusion? And the high court basically came in with the Chevron decision, which that's the one that, of all the decisions they made in the last term, I think that's the one that is the most powerful, because it tells those agencies you cannot make it up as you go along, and businesses have the right to sue you when they think that you've gone over the line.
Yeah,
and boy, did that hurt them. That was definitely a missile to the deep state. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you mentioned too, the lack of transparency and that they're not looking into anything. That applies to the assassination attempt as well. The first one, certainly. I mean, we still don't have a lot of information about how did this guy get on the roof? How did all these failures happen? There is an investigation going on in Congress, and there was a Democrat congressman that came out the other day on camera and said, "You're going to be shocked, of what we find." I forget his name, but so it's hard to imagine that we can trust these agencies like the FBI to really get to the bottom of this, because their bosses are incentivized to not do so. They want to sweep this under the rug as quickly as possible. Thankfully, this happened in Florida, and so I don't know if you saw this or not, but Ron DeSantis put out a statement. He said the state of Florida will be conducting its own investigation regarding the attempted assassination at Trump International Golf Club. The people deserve the truth about the would-be assassin and how he was able to get within 500 yards of the former president and current GOP nominee. So Florida will be conducting an independent investigation separate from the feds. So maybe they'll find out some additional information, or maybe that'll put some pressure onto the FBI and the other feds, because they're already scrubbing everything. I mean, just one more thing real quick. Facebook has already scrubbed the profile of the shooter, like, immediately. And this happens all the time too. Somebody comes out and does like a high profile, politically motivated attack or a mass shooting or something like that, and you see that their social media profiles are deleted like almost immediately, because they don't want people to be able to look into this on their own and see, what are this guy's motivations, what are his political leanings and things like that. They want to control the narrative from the beginning, and that's what this is all about.
Well, to be clear, we have never called for any kind of violence against people that we don't agree with. Do I agree with Joe Biden? Not a lot. And we talked about that when he was inaugurated. It was the first episode of the podcast. And I wanted him to succeed because I want my country to succeed. And did we test him at every place that we disagreed with him? Absolutely we did, because that is the American thing to do. If we don't disagree, we got to say something, have our debate, have the election. And if Kamala Harris wins, as much as I think she is probably the stupidest person to ever be vice president of the United States, and that she is not qualified to be president, she may well win this election. And if she does, I will wish her well, because I want my country to do well. But what we'll do on this podcast is, when we disagree, we'll talk about the disagreement. If Donald Trump wins, and we didn't have the podcast back when he was president, we will disagree with Donald Trump at certain points. I disagree with him over the high tariffs he wants to put in place, because I know that's a tax increase on the end user. So we'll have that debate if he becomes president. So, it's about disagreement on the political policies that we're talking about. It's not negative toward that person. I don't hate Joe Biden. I don't hate Kamala Harris. I just don't think they're right for the future of the country. And that's my right as an American, right? That's your right as an American.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't hate the player, hate the game, right?
That's it. So speaking of the game, the debate was on last week, and I know it's kind of old news by now, but there are some things that we want to talk about. And I didn't watch the debate because I knew exactly what was going to happen. Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug, they're like buddy-buddy with the guy that runs ABC, right? Very tight.
Yeah.
And I knew that you were going to have two moderators from ABC and Kamala Harris, so it was going to be 3-on-1 against Donald Trump. And from what I've seen in clips, Donald Trump did not have a great night that night. But my God, it was 2-on-1. And it starts from the very beginning when they asked Kamala Harris, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And they let her ramble on with, a message that had nothing to do with the fact that she has been part of an administration for the last 3.5 years. It was all about her growing up in a middle class, blah, 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 and her dreams for the future. And I don't know what kind of clips you want to play out of this, but one I wanted to hit was Mark Penn. Now, Mark Penn was a strategist and pollster for Bill Clinton. He's a Democrat, and he thought the game was so tilted in Kamala Harris's favor, a Democrat went on and said this.
My reaction is I'm really concerned about what ABC did. When the refs put their finger on the scale, you got to throw out the score of the game. What would have happened in that debate had they challenged Harris and said, that's not right what you said there about Charlottesville. Right. We don't know how she would have reacted, and then Trump wouldn't have to spend all his time on the debate center. I think they did a real disservice to the voters of America when they did that, and they put in jeopardy the institutions of debate.
Well, and look, for the candidate on your side of the political aisle, it might have helped her.
Sorry for the crappy audio.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's saying that. So what I saw was, in clips, 5 times the moderators went after Donald Trump and fact-checked him. That's not the role of the moderator, number one. But number two, if you're going to do it for this guy, you got to do it for her. And she was allowed to say whatever the hell she wanted to say, big smile on her face, knowing that they weren't going to challenge her. And that's wrong.
Yeah, this is a long clip. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but this goes through all the examples of the moderators jumping in.
He said, the baby will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
If I hear you bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed. You repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide.
Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice President,
fake.
The FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime.
Correct.
Jim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way.
I heard some funny takes too that that was the biggest takeaway from the debate is that Kamala Harris is a gun owner.
Yeah.
What?
but they didn't fact check her. They didn't push back on anything that she said. They just let her say whatever, and they jumped on everything that Trump said.
You are fake news.
If you look at where it landed on policy, Trump won on policy because all she had were the debunked attacks on Donald Trump, the things that we know aren't true.
Yeah. Like I said, there was a whole series of questions about January 6th, Charlottesville, election denial, et cetera, et cetera. If that's fair game, if it's like personal, you did this, you said Nazis are very fine people, then why didn't they ask Kamala about her positions or, how she got into politics maybe? Maybe that could be a question. But
that would be a really interesting question, especially if she answered it correctly. So she won on unsubstantiated and or debunked claims, avoiding answering basic questions. But now she's emboldened. She's going to do Oprah. Have you heard that?
No.
Oh, yeah. She's going to do the Oprah Winfrey show. You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car.
You get a mail-in ballot, and you get a mail-in ballot, and you get a mail-in ballot.
I wonder if the hard-hitting questions that we've all wondered about, what flavor ice cream does she like? Will that be asked on Oprah? Because it's not going to be anything challenging. But she's emboldened now because she knows it's like what we've been telling her. The media wants you to win. The fix is in. So then she goes on Philadelphia 6, which is the local Channel 6, I'm assuming, in Philadelphia.
Yeah, 6
right?
ABC.
Yeah, okay. So, and the anchor asks her a question. See if you can figure out what the answer is.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, but a lot of people will relate to this. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn. And I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity. And that we as Americans have a beautiful character. We have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an opportunity economy, it is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people, and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business.
Okay, I want you to go back to the beginning of that and get to his question again.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's like a filibuster,
right?
Because you get so distracted by the nonsense that's coming out of her mouth, you forget what the question is.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Okay.
Well, when I was 6, my Mima told me that I was special.
What are one or two specific things you have in mind? And then, as you point out, it's a word salad filibuster that, if you were taking a test and it were an essay test in college, I was a political science major and I was great at that. I could fill up the whole page. And that's the whole thing. Fill it up with a bunch of nonsense gobbledygook, and they do a word count. And that's exactly what she did there. It's a word count.
Maybe you should run for president.
You know what? It's so toxic, and we're going to get into that here in a little bit here. I don't know that I was in politics for 10 years, and I don't know that I want to do that again. Celebrity endorsements. Do they matter? Kamala Harris has been endorsed by Taylor Swift. Does anybody care? I mean, does that mean all of her followers who will go through broken glass to get to one of her concerts, are they all now going to go out and vote? Is that what this is all about? You had a picture of her with a cat.
Yeah, that was this was on Instagram, so that was the photo. Then this is I'm not going to read all of it. But
yeah. Well, I just wonder if
emotional.
If in Springfield, if the Haitians would look at that and think that was like a buffet, because that's a big cat.
Yeah,
that'd feed a whole.
I don't know. It's kidding. I'm kidding. It's kind of furry though. Like it's a long hair cat, so it's probably not as much meat as you think it is.
So Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris. Brittany Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes' wife, she's with Donald Trump. Patrick Mahomes says, "I'm here to play football. I think you should do your homework and figure out which candidate best represents your needs, your wants, your desires for this country." Travis Kelce, who knows? I don't know that he follows politics all that much. But they're a foursome. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, Brittany, and Patrick Mahomes. And guess what? They may not agree on politics, but they're friends. They hang out. They went to the U.S. Open together as a foursome, right?
Just recently?
Yeah. So how in the world can people who don't agree on politics be able to go do other things together?
I was wondering about that actually too, because this is, I'm sure, just a this is like a decision made by the broadcasters, I'm assuming. But the past couple games, they've both been home games, and obviously Taylor's been there. And they used to show Taylor and Brittany together all the time when she was on TV last year, when the whole craze was going on about Taylor and Travis and everything else. They would always be together, Taylor and Brittany, in the booth, and they would show them together hanging out. Brittany has not been on camera one time that I noticed so far this year, and Taylor seems to be by herself with other people. So I was wondering, according to you, they're still, hanging out and going
Google
to the U.S. Open and stuff.
Google the U.S. Open, and, I don't know how much time we have to kill here. And while we're doing that, I'll talk about something else here. I did put up a graphic on our podcast page on Facebook that shows a man holding up a sign that says, "We can disagree and remain friends. And there you go. That's from the U.S. Open. And that's been, what, in the last 10 days? Look at that. They got their arms around each other.
Yeah.
So, you can disagree on politics and remain friends. And I know that in my own personal life, because there are a lot of people who don't agree with me on politics. Some of them, I sit around the table with at Chiefs games before we're waiting for kickoff, and we solve a lot of the world's problems. They don't agree with me on policy on 100%. Kurt and I don't agree 100% on policy.
What?
I know, but we're still friends. And I know you feel strongly about abortion. That's one of your big issues, right?
That's one of them.
Okay. So on the Facebook page, somebody said to me, I can't be friends with anybody who supports baby killers. And I can't support anybody who says it's okay for boys to play on the girls' team. Okay, well, let's cut that apart. I'm sure that you know someone in your friend circle who's been party to an abortion or supports abortion at some level. You support Donald Trump for president. He supports abortion up to 15 to 16 weeks. So you can't draw that line in the sand and say just because we disagree on a policy issue, and abortion is, I know it's a big emotional issue. It's a tragedy in a family when something like that has to happen, or when that even gets to the table for discussion. It's not something to throw your friend overboard over, we can disagree on policy, but we can still remain friends. And I have many friends in my circle of friends who are Democrats who I know are going to vote for Kamala Harris, and I shake my head. I try and sway them to my side, and they still like me. I'm still in their friend circle, even though they know that when I look at policy and I see where we were 4 years ago versus where we've been for the last 3.5, to me, it is a no-brainer that we've got to go back the other way. We've got to get back to a secure border. We've got to get inflation in check. We got to simmer down this world because it's on fire right now. And all of the stuff happening on the world stage is a result of Joe Biden and policy decisions he's made. I mean, this was all self-inflicted. It's all a self-inflicted wound. And that's why I'm going the other way. I respect people who will go their way, and we can still be friends. Now, where I disagree with that, and one of our keyboard warriors who I've known for a very long time, full disclosure, he worked for me at KFKF years ago, and he lives in Florida now, and we've been Facebook friends for years and years. I did unfriend him on my personal page. I did block him on my personal page, and that's because when we got into a discussion about politics, he made it very personal and said a bunch of shit that he has no idea what he's talking about, and, attacked me and attacked my own politics when I was running for mayor of Blue Springs. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And he made it very personal and very ugly. Well, how are we friends?
Right.
We don't have to be friends. I didn't block him from our podcast page because he can get on there and bloviate all he wants. There's another guy in Blue Springs who made it abundantly clear to me that we're not friends. So I unfriended him from my personal page and I blocked him. There's another person, and I worked with his wife for a very long time. She is still one of my dear friends. He told me, I was sitting in an airport in Minneapolis, ready to board a plane, and this has been when Donald Trump was president. And he said, if you agree with any policy that Donald Trump promotes, you're a Nazi. And I said, are you sure, based on our 25 years of friendship, that you don't want to walk that back? And he said, if the shoe fits. Life's too short.
Bye-bye.
Don't need it, right? So that sign there says we can disagree and still be friends is true.
You're not a nice person.
But we don't have to be friends, right? And if you make it abundantly clear that you don't want to be my friend, bye-bye. Don't need you. I can pivot and move in a different direction. I want you to be my friend. And hopefully we can be friends, even if we disagree on policy. Now, I'll turn it over to you. You have your circle of friends. Do you know that there are people in your circle of friends who don't agree with you politically?
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm a musician, so.
And yet,
most of them.
You're still friends.
But yeah, I mean, there's nuance here. I've lost friends for sure, but most of that has not been initiated by me. It's been initiated by them. And if that's the route that they want to take, then that's fine. I mean, I don't hold it against them. I wish they didn't feel that way, but it is what it is.
Well, what's an example of somebody you've unfriended?
Well, I'm not gonna get into anything personal, but what I will say too, though, is that there's a line somewhere. You know, it's one thing to have disagreements with your friends or politically, you know, or things like that. You know, not agree on certain issues or not vote for the same person. That's all fine. I mean, and I think it's actually probably good, just personally, for you to have people in your circles that don't agree with you on everything. You know, it keeps you sharp. It gives you a sort of diverse in the actual true meaning of the word diverse, you know, group of people that you're around. But there is a line to be drawn somewhere. For example, like on the abortion thing, if you have somebody that's like an advocate and is out there, you know, telling people to go get abortions and you know, making it a big issue in their lives personally, that's not something that I want in my life. You know, I don't want to be associated with that. That's negative energy and frankly like evil that I just don't want to be involved with, you know, and now that I have kids or a kid, you know, that's a big part of it too, is like thinking about influences on myself and my family and things like that. So there is a line to be drawn somewhere. If you have somebody that is, I don't know, some kind of radical activist or things like that. I'm sure maybe people have felt that way about me, which is obviously not true, but maybe that's why they've X'd me and they have the complete right and, you know, authority as an individual to do that. But yeah, I do think it's healthy to have people in your life that you disagree with, but there is a line to be drawn somewhere. And I don't think it's all, you know, hunky dory, like let's all get along there. You know,
well, I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't mean that you are. I just mean that, you know, the world that we live in is increasingly divisive. And while I don't like to see that, and I want that to not be the case, you still can't, you know, capitulate to that at a certain point. You kind of have to put your foot down at a certain point. Where that point is up to you to decide.
All right. Well said. If you wreck your car, here's something. How about that for a transition? If you wreck your car and you're in the Kansas City area and they say, hey, where are we going to take this thing? Well, if you want it restored to showroom new, I'm going to suggest Dale's Body Shop, locally owned. Now, it's in Blue Springs, but they fix cars from all over the metro area. He's been there for 37 years. And by way of full disclosure, I've wrecked a few of my cars, and Dale's put them back together. My kids have wrecked their cars, certainly. And you're going to get into that when yours starts driving, too, by the way. It happens, right? It happens. So you want to take it to Dale's Body Shop. 37 years in the Kansas City area, taking care of cars, taking care of you. And in fact, you know, if you know someone who is a body shop worker, you know, somebody who has that in their skill set, Dale Reynolds would love to talk to him. Always looking for qualified folks to put to work at his shop. Dale's Body Shop is in Blue Springs. You don't even need to know that. All you need to know is if you get in a wreck or your family, somebody gets in a wreck and they say, where are we taking this thing? Take it to Dale's Body Shop. And it should be an easy name to remember, right?
Yeah,
Dale.
Hopefully.
If you're watching or listening to Dale Carter's America, that's all you need. He's the other Dale in Blue Springs, Dale's Body Shop. Now, in terms of your body is aging, right? And you're going to hit 65 if you're lucky, right? I got a friend who works here at KFKF. She just told me that she's turning 65 later this month. And I said, oh, Medicare. She goes, yeah, I know. And I said, have you talked to anybody about Medicare? Because Medicare, it just sounds like that checkered flag that we're all going for as we get closer to 65. It is a maze. It is definitely not one size fits all. You need somebody to sit down with you, look at your unique circumstances, and walk you through what you need to know. And for us, that's Kirk Doris and Lori Hocker at Medicare Simplified KC. And they've got a brand new website, all kinds of pictures, all kinds of information. Get on the web at MedicareSimplifiedKC.com and see the questions you ought to be asking and set up an appointment with these guys and let them take you through the traps, okay? You don't pay them. and they don't come. If you can't come to them, they'll come to you. That's the they'll make it easy for you. 816-701-6661. Get the answers. Know your options. They're at 3600 South Nolan Road in Independence. But again, they'll make an appointment and they'll come to you. Good folks who want to help you get everything you can out of Medicare. All right, let's talk about the border here, because the border is, to me, one of the top 3 issues in this election, because the border's been wide open. And we just came out of 9/11, and I talked about that last week as we marked the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks on our country. And my take is the number one disqualifying reason why Kamala Harris cannot be our next president is her abject failure on the border. She literally, Kurt, had one job. Joe Biden gave her one job other than her constitutional job, which is president of the Senate, to break a tie and wait around and see if he has a stroke so that she could be the next president. Literally, that's her only 2 constitutional duties. He gave her another. And a lot of presidents have given their vice president something to do. John F. Kennedy told LBJ he wanted him to run NASA and get us to the moon by the end of the 1960s. Different presidents have used their vice presidents in different ways. And Joe Biden said to her, now maybe he didn't use the word border czar. You really want to pick that apart? He told her she was in charge of what was happening at the border. And nothing changed. She didn't go to the border for a long time. Remember when she was on with Lester Holt and Lester said, hey, you been to the border? And she goes like, oh, I don't understand the question. I mean, I haven't been to Europe either. The things that she has said, that was her job. And she is a total and abject failure in that regard. How in the world can you promote her to the next job?
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. And we've had millions of people coming across the border. God knows who's caught up in that, because they can't tell you with any kind of credibility, right? Who knows who came across the border?
Let's watch it again for
I love highlights.
Posterity.
We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
I don't understand the point that you're making, yet I feel qualified to be the next president. And Lester, man, I thought you were a pal. What's up?
You're not a nice person.
Yeah. I mean, Oprah would never ask me that question. Okay, so when you've got the border and the abject failure of Kamala Harris on the border. Meanwhile, I want to point this out. Last week, 616 people from 94 different countries were sworn in as United States citizens at Kauffman Stadium here in Kansas City. We welcome them. We want them. We need them. They did it the right way. Now, imagine if you are a recent immigrant to this country who did everything the right way. You crossed the T's, you dotted the I's, and you got sworn in at Kauffman Stadium here in Kansas City. I'm assuming there were ceremonies like that all across the country, and we welcomed in people that we need in this country to help keep us moving forward, because we are the great melting pot. You did all this the right way. How do you feel when people just kind of walk in and do whatever the hell they want to do?
You'd have to ask them. I have a different opinion.
What's your opinion?
I mean, do we need these people?
We do. I mean, look, if you owned a business and you were trying to hire people and you can't hire people, we don't have enough people who want to work. The birth rate in this country is going through the floor. We need people. We've always needed people to come in.
Yeah, but if we bring, if we bring people in from other countries and other cultures as a substitute for having kids, then we're no longer a country.
Well, I mean, we've always had immigrants come in. We're a country of immigrants. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for immigrants. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be here.
Right, but those people that came were having kids, first of all. They were having lots of kids. They were assimilating into our culture. They were from similar cultures, largely. And now we're just letting people in from wherever. There's no assimilation. I mean, they're replacing, natural born Americans, like traditionally people who have lived here. So I don't think that's an answer to the population crisis in our country. You know, we're not having kids. People who are American citizens traditionally are not having kids. So we're just bringing in immigrants to replace them.
Well, I think you're missing my point.
Work.
These people basically wanted to be Americans. They went through the process. They did everything they needed to do. They're raising their right hands. They're swearing to defend the Constitution of the United States. To me, that's good enough. What's not good enough is the open border that we have at the southern end of this country and Democrats trying to make them citizens. In fact, this whole thing that's going on in Springfield, Ohio, to jump around here on my little outline here, is because they're under Joe Biden's temporary protected status. They're not those 616 people at Kauffman Stadium who did it the right way. They're basically put there. They're living in Springfield, Ohio. Are they eating pets? I have no idea. But that seems to be all the Democrats care about, all that the media cares about. My question is, why are they here? And why were they put at the front of the line?
Can I play the debate clip? Because it's really funny.
Sure.
Our country and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as
there you have it.
Oh, and you're pulling that from C-SPAN, and they're running a crawl. Why did Donald Trump lobby against the immigration bill? So they've got their finger on the scale as well, because I can tell you why he lobbied against it, because it was a Christmas tree bill. There was billions of dollars. It sounded like Biden. Trillions and billions. There was a lot of money in there that we don't have that was spent for things other than immigration. A Christmas tree bill sucks in every little piece of pork they can find, and that's why it's a bad bill. Secure the border first, and then let's talk about immigration reform. You got to do it in that order. It's bass-ackwards to do it any other way. Trump also mentioned Aurora, Colorado. Armed gangs taking over apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. That's the story that's out there. The Colorado Sun, that's the newspaper out there, using Democrat play number 5, says nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. You're just racist. In that way, they have deftly folded in play number 1 to go with play number 3. What do you have?
This is a clip of the takeover of the. I'll just play it while you're talking.
Yeah, because that didn't happen, right? Nothing to see here. We don't know what this is. You know, are they here legally? Illegally? Who are they? So when we focus on things like eating pets, I just want to know who these folks are and why they're here.
Well, the Springfield thing, too, is a perfect example of what I was talking about. I mean, it doesn't really... Yeah, they're illegal. What are they, Somalians? Haitians, I'm sorry. In Springfield. But it's like the pure number that's the problem. It's not their illegal status. You know, it's the fact that it's a town of 60,000 people and 20,000 Haitians were brought into their town. These are people that do not share their culture. They don't share their customs. They don't share their language. They barely speak English. They've been given driver's licenses, and they're going around hitting people with their cars, causing all kinds of damage. So it's not the fact that they're illegal per se. I mean, okay, what if it was 20,000 legal Haitian migrants going into a small town in Ohio? It'd still be a problem for the same reasons. It's now 1/4 of their population is totally foreign to their way of life. And that's just not sustainable. That's not America, you know?
Well, I mean, let me give you the flip side of that, because when my family came over from Germany, they all coalesced in southern Indiana and sprung up towns of nothing but German-speaking people. And in fact, in World War I and World War II, it was problematic for my family because German was their first language. It's the same kind of a thing. And ultimately, over generations, they did assimilate in. And all I'm saying is, do it the right way. If you do it the right way and you come into the United States, you can live wherever you want. And if you all want to come to Blue Springs, Missouri, you'll all come to Blue Springs, Missouri. But do it the right way. That's my thing. And back to the bill, the bill that we were talking about, that Donald Trump told Republicans vote no, and that's why we have this terrible immigration system. These are the same people that gave us the Inflation Reduction Act. And even now, they wink and they go, yeah, that had nothing to do with inflation reduction. It's all about the Green New Deal. They laugh and they chortle because they fool you at every turn. Will you be fooled again? That's the question going into this election. And sanctuary cities, that's another thing that's out there. New York City, biggest city in America. Their city council is now saying, how do we get out of this deal? It sounded great on paper. We're a sanctuary city. I mean, that sanctuary is even a nice word, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, man, it just makes me think of peace. And we just all want to get along and live in peace. And what it's turned into is a bunch of illegals living in your city that you can't afford. And now it's like, wow, shit, let's get out of this deal. And by the way, to shit on New York a little bit further, they just passed a study group for reparations. So there's another city that's going to study, and unless my geography is off, I believe New York was north of the Mason-Dixon line and was never a slave state, right? New York was never a slave state.
Correct.
Yet they are going to study how to pay reparations to who, I don't know, from whom, I don't know. I'm assuming me, because I'm a white guy, right? You're a white guy. So
allegedly.
Step up and write the check.
Allegedly.
That's all they care about.
I self-identify.
So, yeah. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, right? We were taught that as kids. So if you want to take the bait and you want to vote for Kamala Harris again, we're going to be here to hold her feet to the fire every step of the way. You vote for Donald Trump, I'll hold his feet to the fire every step of the day. We're almost $36 trillion in debt. What's he going to do about that? I wish he'd talk about that more and stop talking about not taxing tips and some of this other crap that he's talking about. So either way, whoever wins, we're going to be here to hold their feet to the fire. That is my promise to you. Mark Taramina's promise to you is that if you go in and get your colonoscopy and they catch it early enough, even if you have polyps or something, they can treat you and they can turn it around. The problem is when you let it go too long, and then they can't do anything about it. Colon cancer is a killer. It's killing more and more people younger every year. We used to say 50 was the limit where you wanted to go get your colonoscopy. Now 45 is the new 50. And if you are turning 45 or somebody in your family or somebody you care about is turning 45, they've not yet had a colonoscopy, tell them. Tell them to call Midwest GI Health and Wellness in Lee's Summit. 816-836-2200. You might save their life. Now, in all likelihood, the odds are in their favor and they won't find anything. And they'll say, clean as a whistle, come back in 10 years and we'll do this again. If they have polyps, they send those off to be tested. And again, catching it early is the key. Dr. Mark Taramina and his staff at Midwest GI Health and Wellness, Google rated 4.9 out of 5 stars. That is the highest in Kansas City. They can do everything they need to do right there at their office in Lee's Summit. They can do the upper GI as well. You get the up and the bottom done, and then you're good to go. And then you'll have a new lease on life. And you might say, hey, I'm tired of paying this lease. I want to be a homeowner because I want to invest in something that's going to be part of my retirement plan. That's where Michael Schroer comes in. He's our real estate pro at RE/MAX Heritage. You can find him at 816-783-5800. He's been at this for most of his adult life, 35 years of residential and commercial construction experience. Maybe it's your starter house. Maybe it's your forever house. Maybe it's the kids have gone off to college and you need to downsize. Whatever your housing need, Michael Schroer can help you. Selling your house too. You got to do both of those things. Do you put solar panels on top of your house? You know, are you going to go solar? That's the question for our next guest, Mike Dale. He is here from Royal Roofing and Solar. Mike, good to have you back with us.
Good to be here, Dale.
Yeah, from Royal Roofing and Solar, and you are the solar guy. But let me tell them, because, you know, if you need that roof inspected, do you do any of the roof stuff, or are you just 100% solar?
Sure. We went through a little lull with solar where people were kind of going to see where the politics went and all that stuff. And I started in heavy set with the roofing part of it. And we've had 6 hailstorms since last September. So in a year, we've had 6 of them. So yeah, I've been on a bunch.
Yeah, you guys did my roof.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if you had anything to do with that, but it's a nice job.
No,
Looks
that
good.
went above my pay grade. That
Above
went
your
straight
pay
to the owner.
Austin Watterson.
Right.
That's who we
correct.
talk about. Or as his friends call him, my wife included, Opie.
Opie, that's right.
Yeah.
Been known as Opie for years.
So if you need your roof inspected, you got to call these guys and get them up there. 816-540-7057. That's the number for Royal Roofing and Solar. RoyalContractingKC.com. And, of course, where you come in with, what'd you guys do? Did you break something over there? What the hell? I mean, this is a high-budget podcast. We have broadcast equipment in here, and you guys just broke it.
This looks expensive.
What do you want to do here, Kurt?
Pause.
Sorry, hit the floor, brother.
All right, to our keyboard warriors out there who say, you edit stuff. You edit stuff. Okay, well, there was an edit here because we had to. Because
Well, you know what? I was actually, I didn't stop recording that whole time, so maybe I'll just roll.
Perfect.
Yeah, because everybody wants to see us crawling around on the floor looking for the screw
See
that
my
holds
butt in front of the camera.
All right, where were we? We were talking about Royal Roofing and Solar, and we've covered the roofing part of it. You need to get your roof inspected, get that roof going there. But you're the solar guy, and I wanted you to come in because I see all these things that you put up on Facebook, the Evergy bills with credits and all that. And you and I had a phone conversation. You said your competitors out there are doing people wrong. They're putting solar in the wrong places. They're overpromising. They're under-delivering, and I hate that.
Right. So first thing I want to say, there are good companies out there, but to use Austin Watterson's verbiage, it was the Wild West for years. My biggest uphill climb is the last 10 years. And to make it simple, salesmen and women, salespeople, they put profits and commission ahead of integrity and truth. When somebody comes to us and says, hey, I'd like to get a quote on solar, I'm going to build a system that comes as close to killing the entire thing as possible or tell you why it won't. If you've got too much shade, if your house faces the wrong direction.
When you say killing it, you mean killing the bill.
Killing the
electric bill.
Yes.
So covering the electric bill
Correct.
with solar.
Yeah, so like I've got a 9.6 kilowatt REC system on my home. I've spent $83 with the electric company the entire year from January 1 until September.
Wow.
I've had many, many negative electric bills where I've killed the whole entire thing and plus some. And those credits roll over to the next month and help kill some of the next month. But yeah, July and August, I had a $33 bill and a $34 bill, and that's what got me up to the spending $80 for the year. But when it's done right, it can kill the whole thing. Now, people ask, what's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? And they think you're just being a salesman when you say, well, it's different for everybody.
It is.
If you have a $500 a month electric bill or you have a $100 a month electric bill, you need a vastly different size system. Yeah. One's going to obviously be more expensive than the other, but it's still cheaper than what you're paying for electricity.
Well, in the conversation you and I have had as well, it's like, what's your time horizon? Me with my house, I'm going to sell it relatively soon, and I don't know that I want to eat that cost on the front end, and so I'm probably not a candidate for it.
You shouldn't. My no-go is 5 years. If you're going to be there 5 years or more, it's a good option. If you're going to be less than 5 years, I actually got a 5-star review the other day from a guy that I told, don't do it. He said, why not? I said, you just told me you're getting ready to put your house on the market next year. Why would you want to buy somebody else's electricity?
Yeah.
So wait if you're going to be there less than 5 years.
Yeah. And then you've got other folks who are selling solar systems and they're pointed the wrong way. I mean, that the angle of the house, the angle of the roof and which way it exposes, that's important too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do a radiance review on every house. The other thing that's different about us is we guarantee our production. If I tell you, Dale, we're going to produce 20,000 kilowatt hours of energy for your home, if we miss that, we're either going to pay the electric company for you, or add panels to your system at no cost to you. That's something that not many companies out there do.
All right. So you told me you've got like a list of questions before you move forward with any other company. What are some of the things you want to cover?
So I will email someone a list of questions. Whether you go solar with us or not, my biggest concern is that you're happy with it, whether it's with us or not. Because my biggest adversary in sales is that people say, solar's a scam, it doesn't work. Listen, I'm sorry your friend down the street with the 200-year-old oak tree on the north side of his house had solar installed right there and it doesn't work. That's a bad experience, I understand, but they shouldn't have sold it to that person. So my list of 15 questions, they range from what brand are the panels? And a lot of companies out there are going to go, oh, they're a tier 1 panel. In parentheses, it says, tier 1 is not an answer. Give me a brand so I can research the warranty. Oh, wow. You don't know what you don't know. Question 5 is the one that gets them all. And it's a little hard to understand, but once you've had a solar proposal and I break it down for you, you will understand completely. Why is the system size that I've built for you the offset that you say it is? Show me mathematically. Because a person will come in there and they'll say 99% offset. Offset is the amount you're going to offset the electric bill.
Sure.
So they'll come in and say 99% offset. And then in little bitty fine print, it says your estimated usage for the year was 30,000 kilowatts. But over here in the fine print, it says our estimated production is 15,000 kilowatts. That's not 99%, that's 50%.
I'm not a good math guy, but I think that's half.
Right. That's exactly half. And so they're coming in and they're telling people 99% offset. And then 3 or 4 months down the road, you're going, golly, how's this saving me money? I've got my solar payment, plus I've got my electric bill. With us, in guaranteeing the production, you can't always be the cheapest, but let me tell you something, in Solardale, cheapest ain't always the best, okay? You can go with a 10-year warranty panel. The panels that we prefer are REC. It's one of the longest running solar companies in the business. The entire warranty on the entire system is 25 years. No ands, if, buts, or ors, or something like that. It's covered 25 years across the board, parts, labor, and production. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So politically, we're coming into an election where right now it's a toss-up. Could be Harris, could be Trump. It was interesting. Harris now says she's for an all-in energy policy, which was news to a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
So, where does solar fit into the political equation with November? Should folks kind of wait and see how it shakes out?
Well, so Evergy has already announced January 2025 13.9% increase.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, so 5 years ago, if you had an average electric bill of $200, it's probably closer to $350 by now, because they did have a 10% increase. Then they had the time of use come out where they're charging you a minimum of triple between 4 to 8 p.m. Most people use 50% of their energy between 4 and 8 p.m. Okay, so half of your electric bill just tripled. All right, and people are scrambling right now going, when is this going to quit? And now there's another 13.9% increase. Our infrastructure, the grid is 100 years old. It needs a lot of work, and that's where all this money is going. Okay, I don't care who gets in office. They're not going to get rid of clean energy. They have been doing this for years and years and years, and it didn't matter who was in office. There was always some type of clean energy plan. Let's face it, whether it's reducing the stress on the grid or whether it's saving the planet, okay? Either way you look at it, it's been a good thing. Owning your power is better than renting your power.
I agree with that.
Right now, what people are doing that just continue to pay the increased rates to their electric company, they're just renting. And think about it, the difference between owning and renting a home, okay? When you own it, your monthly payment doesn't go up. You've locked that in.
Right.
When you rent it, the landlord can say, hey, next month we're going to have to increase rates. So ownership is always better than renting when it comes to your electricity. Anything you can own, is better than renting, because rent can go up. So it doesn't really matter who's going to be in office. I would have put solar on my roof whether Trump was going to be in office or whether Harris was going to be in office. I did it while Biden was in office. So I don't really believe that who's in office is going to matter that much, when it comes to owning your power.
Yeah, turn your house into its own power generating unit.
Correct.
Love
and
that.
Get 30% back.
Yeah. So how can folks arrange this? They want to talk to you. They want to get these 15 questions and get the truth about solar.
So, yeah, absolutely. The quickest and easiest way, you can email me at miked@solarbyroyal.com, or you can call me at 816-200-6259, and we can set up an appointment. I will just email you. If you want to get quotes before me, I will just email it over to you, no questions asked, and that way you know the answers to the test.
You're a big proponent for solar. and hopefully they'll go with you guys. And if not, hopefully they'll get a system that works for their needs.
That's my biggest fear, is that they get a system that somebody has a $500 a month electric bill and some shyster comes in and says, oh yeah, this 5 kilowatt system for $25,000 is going to kill your entire electric bill. Oh, well, that sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
Until you've still got a $300 a month electric bill and a $200 a month solar payment. Now you're not saving anything. So we come in and we show you mathematically why and how it's going to work. So
there you go. Royal Roofing and Solar, Mike Dale. Always a pleasure to have you in here. You make a compelling argument, my friend.
Thank you, Dale.
All right. All right. So, again, Mike Dale, we thank him for being here, part of the podcast today. So we've solved a lot of problems on this podcast. And after we solve a lot of problems, even with people we don't agree with 100% of the time, we want to sit down and have a cold beverage and share a pizza. And I would do that. In fact, we're going to do that coming up this fall again at Fun House Pizza. And I'm going to invite some of the folks that don't agree with us at all politically and just sit down and see if we can't have a pizza. What do you think, Kurt? You up for that?
Oh, I'm always down. They're not going to show up, but you can invite them.
They never show up. It's like, we invite them and it's like, no, I'd rather be here on Facebook going, in fact, one of our keyboard warriors, he tested my level of knowledge about Marxism. Now, I have a degree in political science, so I know a little bit about that, right? And so I did what they always do, right? I went to Google and I got the AI-generated definition of Marxism, and he took me to task for that. I'm like, yeah, you can't win.
The thing with that is, to communists, you can never truly define Marxism. It's the old communism's never really been tried trope. So every self-appointed liberal communist that has is spoiled by their American way of life will tell you that your definition of communism is wrong, because only their definition of Marxism and communism is to be believed.
Well, I think they should move to Cuba then. Right?
That's how it works.
Let us know how that's working out for you. Anyway, off track here. But even those people we don't agree with, come to Funhouse Pizza in the near future, and we'll sit down, we'll have a pizza, we'll have a beer, and everything is going to be just great. 50 Highway Lee Summit, 7 Highway in Blue Springs. A great place to meet and gather. A birthday party, anniversary party, maybe a team meeting, something like that. We'll get a guest here in the fall, in the coming weeks here, somebody that you might want to see and meet other than me and Kurt, and we'll sit down together. It'll be a lot of fun. Maybe Bob Watson will come. When Bob Watson shows up at our events, he always brings prizes. I don't know if he feels like he has to or what. We don't want to discourage him.
Bob, you have to.
Bob, you have to bring prizes. We won't have you there unless you have prizes. But while you're there, you should get to know him, because he's a great insurance guy. He's been my insurance guy for nearly 30 years. And he'll take care of you at 7th and Main in Blue Springs. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance. If it's important enough to you to insure, you want to have a team like Bob Watson's behind you. 816-229-7878. 816-229-7878. He is licensed in both states, Missouri and Kansas. And at State Farm, they say bundle your home and car insurance and you'll save even more. The agent makes a big difference, though. Bob Watson, my longtime agent and a dear, dear friend of mine.
Tremendous people.
Other friends I have include the hosts of Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara has been a guest on this show. Other than the fact that he's a Buffalo Bills fan, I like him a lot. But we disagree when our two teams play each other.
See, there you go. We can get along.
Exactly. Gary and Eric are on Red Eye Radio and overnights, and that in Kansas City is going to be on Talk Radio KCMO. So check them out if you're up late at night, because, man, they distill all these issues down to their core. And unlike Kamala Harris, they have beliefs and they stick to them. They had a funny take, and I don't even know if it was their take or they stole it from somebody else. All the great ideas are out there that are stolen. And they were talking about this whole eating pets thing, right? And it reminded me of a story when I was doing the morning show in Hartford, Connecticut. We had this song parody that we played, Cats in the Cradle. Are you familiar with that song?
Yeah.
Yeah. This song was takeoff on a Chinese restaurant, and it was called Cats in the Kettle. Cats in the Kettle at the Peking Moon, blah, 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 blah. And it went on and on like that. And we played it every once in a while because we thought it was funny, right? And I got a call one day on the morning show from a guy who owned a Chinese restaurant. And we recorded the call and we put him on the air. And he's like, we have no cats in our food. No cats.
That's hilarious.
It made me think of that because, now they're talking about eating dogs and cats in Springfield. And Gary and Eric took it to a conclusion that I think we should all think about. Because there was a time when we would say something like, well, the Democrats, they're going to support that you can call yourself a woman if you want to call yourself a woman. In fact, we should accept the fact that if you've called yourself a woman, you can play on the women's team. You can dress in the locker room. You know, when that all started, Democrats said, oh, you guys are ridiculous. You're absolutely ridiculous. So let's equate that to eating pets in Springfield. So the evolution is, oh, you guys are ridiculous. They're not eating pets. To what's wrong with eating pets, right? They've got protein in there. Pets are good for you. To the evolution of, well, if you don't support their right to eat pets, what's that make you? You're a Nazi.
Yeah, you must be racist.
Yeah, and that's the extent of it, to the point where, why aren't you eating pets? Right?
Yeah. It's funny how everything like that happens so quickly now. The progression happens within like 3 days. It goes from denial to acceptance to promotion within 3 days.
What's wrong with you? So let's watch this story and see if it evolves in that way. If maybe ABC or MSNBC is going to do a series on, the practicality of eating pets. And who knows, maybe that crazy cat lady down the street from you, maybe she'll be reclassified as a farmer or a rancher.
If you're in a pinch.
Man, Debbie Erickson, she'd be in high cotton, wouldn't she? Yeah. She's got like 15,000 animals on her place. Just kidding. We are not recommending this. Just thinking in all logic that that's perhaps the way that this story is going to progress. Until next week, and God knows what we'll face then, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to DaleCartersAmerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.